Hey everybody. So it would seem Xbox has officially, I would say, thrown in the towel at this point in the console war, thus ending the said console war. With the announcement that Halo is coming to PlayStation 5, that is really the final nail in the coffin for Xbox as a individual platform for games. Halo is the last big Xbox game to go multi-platform. That was the final straw. Because that was the one that was the most tied to Xbox. Yes, Gears of War, but people, when they think Xbox, they thought Halo. Because Halo was the first big Xbox game. I remember playing Halo for the first time and thinking, oh my god, this is amazing. It's why I got an Xbox, was because I tried Halo that first time. And it sold me on being an Xbox gamer. I mean, I got the 360 on launch. And the 360 was probably my favorite out of the modern consoles. And the 360 really was just a great time for gaming. Between the games that they had and things that they were doing that, never carried over to the Xbox One as well. Xbox Live Arcade, stuff like 1 versus 100. They were doing some truly great things. I mean, even if Kinect turned out to be kind of bunk, it was at least interesting. It at least captured your imagination for a minute. The amount of crappy shovelware now killed it, but that's neither here nor there. The point is, the 360 not only was solid for gaming at the time, with both big and small experiences, but it also was a great place for experimentation. And unfortunately, Xbox was never able to capitalize on that success because their leadership at Microsoft completely and utterly misread the moment. And instead jumped on the trend of this whole home device. This place where it's all plugged in together and you can watch TV through it and you can use it as a DVR and all of this stuff that nobody cared about at the time. Now you could say that, well, maybe that was, now that we're looking at this idea that, you could just buy a TV and it's got the Xbox app right there and it just works. That maybe they were, a decade ahead of their time. And maybe they were. But there's a matter of reading the room. Because the thing is I think that had they done certain specific things during that push into the living room like that, more around TV and gaming and sports, I think that you could have made it successful. But the thing that was missing was backwards compatibility. I think if they had thought about that, if that whole new digital library that you made on your 360 carried over every game, I think you would have had something there. I think that people would have been more forgiving. But they weren't, because it wasn't there. And it made it look like all you cared about was charging for a new device that did a bunch of stuff that people didn't really care about when buying an Xbox. And then, the Series X and S launch. And the S kind of drags it down a little bit. And, I don't have necessarily a problem with the S. I got one for my kid. It was good for her. But it did drag down the Series X and its ability to compete. Because there were developers who were like, look, I'm not developing 3 different games for basically 2 systems. I'm just not. And so the Xbox lost out on some games. Or were greatly delayed so that by the time the game actually hit Xbox, it had no relevance. Its moment had passed. So, Xbox has been kind of a dead man walking for a while. It was propped up by excitement for Game Pass. And then when they bought Activision Blizzard, you know, there's a there's a saying I have when it comes to my day job that I tell people all the time is you don't want eyes on you. You want to come in, you want to do your job, you want to do your job well, but you don't necessarily want to do certain things that might get eyes on you. And that's kind of what happened. I think Xbox was operating under a certain blind spot when it comes to Microsoft as a whole. But the minute they dropped all that money on Activision Blizzard, and I think more so the court cases, I think if they had been able to just buy it and not really receive any resistance, I think maybe Satya doesn't pay as much attention. But the minute Satya starts getting called into court, guess what? Now he's going to really be paying attention to what Xbox is doing. Because now he's had to, leave his, nice little C-suite and come down. And he's got to argue for this thing. And now the money that's been spent is in his, right there, front and center. And it was all downhill from there. Since then, we've gotten all the price increases, more games have gone multi-platform, and now here we stand at the precipice of Halo going on to PlayStation. Xbox was supposed to have a standalone handheld. That's what they were supposed to be announcing. And now, we've got the Xbox ROG Ally. And those look cool. I'll probably eventually get one. Because I'll be able to play my Xbox library, eventually fully on there. But there's still a lot of it on there through the Play Anywhere. As more games get put into cloud gaming, I'll be able to play more and more of my own games on there. And still have access to Steam on it and all those extra marketplaces. I imagine that the next console will be much the same. A third-party, Xbox partnership on the device with a shockingly premium price. But as Xbox pushes their OS onto multiple devices, will it even matter? Will it even matter at that point? Whether you're buying the Xbox device. Who knows? But, it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the gaming market reacts. Will PlayStation start jacking up prices? What happens when there isn't a robust Xbox to compete with PlayStation? We don't know. Ultimately, I hope that Xbox is making the right decision by trying to go multi-platform and turning itself more into a competitor against Apple and Google and, trying to get people into their platform and kind of being this one-stop shop devices with these partnerships where you can have your Xbox marketplace and your Steam marketplace and good old games and Epic Game Store. I hope they're right. I hope that it creates more competition and drives prices down. Will it do that? I don't know. But all I can say is at least they're looking at ways of making sure that we keep access to our libraries, no matter what device we're on. And I at least have to be thankful for that, even if I'm a little bummed that they've officially kind of thrown the towel in. So let me know what you think. Comment below, like, share, subscribe, all that. And I'll see you in the next video.